There are two things now that I have noticed in your presentation. And the first is that is a tardiness you talked about in terms of taking in the 2013 budget when you still have the medium-term framework before you. You say the 2013 budget you believe will be predicated on the medium-term framework. Is there anything stopping the House of Representatives, because it's always canvassed for this, from taking the budget from the president and even possibly comparing notes? Is it not just because it's trying to shirk responsibility? Because we did hear you say once, before the House went on recess, that you would not advise that the House accepts the PIB because you're going on recess, and people will say it's been with the House since so and so time, and how come the PIB still hasn't been considered? Isn't that the reason why you're not taking in the 2013 budget as well?
It's again, it boils down to, I mean, there's a method to everything, even to madness. There's a method to it. There's a way you need to do things. There are set rules. You cannot simultaneously, like you suggested, consider a 3-year or medium-term framework, which is basically what it is, a framework, and a detailed budget for 2013. Whilst I agree that it can be done, but I think a better way to go about it, is to consider, is to take one step, put the cart before the horse. Take one step at a time, not confuse or muzzle up, rather confuse or give the impression that you have you passed the 2013 budget to the National Assembly and they're sitting on it. Meanwhile, we're sitting on it because we haven't even considered the medium-term expenditure framework. But then you give the impression that, hey, it's now, the ball is in their court. We've given them the 2013 budget and they're just sitting on it and doing nothing. Now, we're not going to accept, the National Assembly has been knocked severally over different issues, including the budget, which never really is the fault of the National Assembly. Prior to today, we've had budgets presented in December. Last year, we had the budget presented December 17th for a fiscal year that ends December 31, leaving the National Assembly with 2 weeks to consider thoroughly a budget of 150 million people. I mean, where is that done in the world? And that is why I actually proposed an amendment to the Constitution that says, because right now the Constitution says the president can't present the budget at any time in that year. Now, my amendment, which has passed through the House, is to set a date which I believe was September 30th, which gives us 3 clear months to consider the budget. But that also presupposes that the 2012 or the preceding year's budget has already been considered, has already been looked at. Implementation has gone to a certain level that you can comfortably say, okay, now let's move on to the following year. We need to fine-tune and streamline the budget process in Nigeria, like it's done in more advanced democracies.
Another question that pops up, I mean, you said that there is nothing in the Constitution that talks about a benchmark for crude oil price. You said it's been the practice. But also considering what the country has gone through in terms of where we're coming from and why it became necessary to set a benchmark, and the fact that we're dependent on fluctuating oil prices for funding our budget, doesn't the National Assembly see where the executive is coming from in terms of having to set something that is reasonably not too low, not too high, considering world prices now, and say playing it safe and saving for the rainy day, especially also considering that at some point in time of our lives, we've had to rely on the savings that we made from setting a benchmark in the very first instance?
Well, first of all, the benchmark doesn't save anything. The benchmark, or rather the the differential goes to the excess crude oil, and that is shared among states. I don't know that there's any savings there. That's number one. Number two, if you want to do that, even if you want to do that, you need to amend the Constitution. You don't do something because it's practical, but it's illegal and it's unconstitutional. That's why we have a constitution. The constitution is a guide to be obeyed, not willy-nilly, not at the whim of anybody, but to be obeyed faithfully. So if you want to do that, the constitution says all revenues must go into the federation account. You cannot say some revenue will go into the federation account and some will go into the excess crude account and save for a rainy day. The issue of rainy day does not even begin to have any. There's no rainy day savings when it comes to benchmark. That's why the government proposed the sovereign wealth fund, which in itself some of us think is unconstitutional. But you can't talk about savings for through the excess crude oil, and at the same time you're talking about savings via the mechanism of the sovereign wealth fund. How many savings accounts do you really have, or do you really want? Whilst your people are suffering, and you're saying at the same time that you have a budget deficit, you don't have any money to finance the budget, you're going and borrowing, meanwhile you have savings, according to you, the excess crude account. So the picture just it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. Let all the revenues go to the whether if it's $100 a barrel, then let it go to the federation account. Let there be more money, disposable income for the country, to spend for the benefit of the people who we represent. I mean, I don't understand the issue of excuse me.